Welcome again. I am super pleased as the CEO of World Ocean Council to be co-hosting this conversation. And again, it's already been mentioned, but this is an ongoing conversation. And I'm going to dig into the actual specifics of the way that we kind of formed these panels, what we want to do in the breakouts, and what the outcomes would be. And Hans already mentioned it, but this builds on what we talked about in Chicago. Some of you were there. It was a smaller group sitting around a table. And so the idea today, even as people come in and out, is to keep that conversation going and basically continue to kind of workshop how we do this better. And there'll be a few different ways I'll describe in a minute. Quick housekeeping, I'm that guy. There's a water cooler in the back, restrooms are around the corner in the hall, and the coffee's down that ways too, and those are very connected for those of you who are following our biology. So the goal for today and the work that we're doing also requires people, and it's been mentioned in terms of workforce and sort of statistics, but also in the room and the way that we all work together. So a preemptive thanks for all the panelists, for the people doing our little hostings and facilitating the workshops, workshopping, and with the breakouts and reporting out, because that's always something that is so valuable. So I particularly appreciate that, doing these conferences and running our own every year as well. So a preemptive thanks to all of you. We are dedicating this to blue finance, and you've heard about the data elements and the ocean enterprise and everything that it supports. And so this room does represent, and those of you are on various parts of it, different pieces of that have already been mentioned. And you look into it and you'll hear from the panelists a view or a perch in terms of what that means thematically in terms of the blue stack and others. So here's the way that we sort of designed this, and as my kids would say, Papa, please stop doing PowerPoints with your hands, but I'm going to do that right now because we're not using PowerPoints today. We have kind of two axes. We have what we're calling the blue capital stack, and one of the panels after lunch will focus on that. Every layer or the layer cake of the type of financing that we're doing up and down that stack, right? And with some people in the room and people we've contacted and who are aware of this process, it's some that sit in the ecosystem around it, who may not be in the blue economy, may not be doing blue financing, but are in the shoulders doing climate, tech, water, et cetera. And often, as already been mentioned, those pillars or those verticals aren't broken. It's tough to get people to say, oh, I do water at XYZ Foundation, and I can see where those things connect. For most of us, we understand it. It's a very obvious situation. So we have the axis of the blue capital stack, the layer cake. Crossing that then, and you'll hear this on the first panel, and the way we've designed the breakouts is the thematics, because in a lot of cases, those themes also within and inside and outside of institutions also don't get crossed. You don't have the layers working together, and you don't necessarily have the verticals working together. So part of the outreach for this event and the ongoing work that we're doing together is to try to break both of those down and sort of bring the whole ecosystem that surrounds it together. From my finance background and the work that I'm still doing with CDFIs and other entities, those that do an incredible amount of coastal and ocean-based financing don't think of themselves as doing blue economy. They think of themselves as doing what they do as an entity. And that goes for some impact investors, that comes from philanthropy and others. So while there's some specialized ocean events, there's specialized ocean groups even here, we know that in the room, sometimes it's just as important to be talking about land-based terrestrial activity and who finances that, and how those mesh with the blue. So you all are now sort of christened, I would say, or deputized to sort of go out there even now and sort of think, how do we bring more of those that are on the shoulders and those that are up and down the stack to what it is that we're doing. So you'll hear from two different panels, and on those axes. And what we did is also preemptively, just on the agenda, very transparently, sent all the questions that we are attempting to answer. We won't get all the way there. We don't have everybody in the room that we wanted, but the idea is to go one step further than we did in Chicago last year and basically start to break down those barriers up and down those two axes. See, there's the PowerPoint again. So, and I wanted to comment, like Margaret Trilly last night from Impact Assets basically took many of the words out of my mouth as she was sitting on stage, because she comes from doing entrepreneurship and housing and other types of activity for impact investors in philanthropy and how they stimulate the system. In a sense, that's where I started as well. And so I felt, Hans and I were looking at each other like, oh my God, that's what you say all the time. And so thinking about how we pull those other parts together, it really struck me, and I talked to her afterwards, immediately sprinting from my table to talk to her after she was on stage. But she didn't know about this event. And she said, you know what, email our founder, tell him what you're doing so that next time around we don't miss this. So in a sense, we all have to keep doing that and not assume that people know we're doing this or that they can find the room, or any kind of simple matters like that as well. This is also not to bend, other than the panels and our discussions on stage, like we are meant to be having a conversation as if this room was a giant round table like we had in Chicago. So if there's something really urgent and you want to talk while the panel and ask a question, please let's do that. That is especially the case for the breakouts, and then the report out from that. So we'll have time for the Q&A after each of the panels, and then I'll do a facilitated wrap up after the working groups. And with that, I'm now going to hand it over to my friend and colleague, Jason D'Onofrio, who I've known for 10 years and have never seen in person. It was sort of like before COVID, during COVID, and yesterday I kept standing in front of him in the hallway, and he's like, "Who's this guy blocking my way?" I'm like, "Jason, in real life, IRL." Over to you. Thanks, everybody.